Guess who's back? Back again. Yeah, it's me, Hitler. The movie opens up at night in the snowy mountains of Norway, where a girl named Sarah is running for her life. By the looks on her face, it is evident that she is being chased by someone, or something. Unfortunately, as she is about to reach her cabin, she accidentally trips over and rolls down a hill, injuring herself. Then, all of a sudden, Sarah is attacked by the mysterious beings, resulting in a painful death. Elsewhere, 7 medical students travel to Uxfjord, Norway, for their Easter holidays. After a long journey, they arrive at a cabin in the woods owned by Vegard, who is revealed to be Sarah's boyfriend. It turns out Sarah had been skiing in the mountains near Uxfjord, and the group were expecting her to return to the cabin. Nonetheless, they have a fun time without her, drinking like crazy and playing trivia games all night. Later, a blonde girl named Liv heads outside to relieve herself, but as she is about to commence, she is startled by a mysterious figure moving in the dark. Liv holds her smelly business for the moment and hurries inside the cabin to inform everyone of her sighting. However, no one is ready to believe her. As the group is contemplating on what to play next, suddenly, a mysterious hiker arrives at the door. He wants to drink some coffee, and so, the group reluctantly lets him in. After a while, the hiker starts to tell them the dark history of Uxfjord. During World War II, a force of German soldiers named Einsatzgruppe, led by Standartenführer Hitler, I hope I don't have to say that again, had invaded and occupied the area. The Nazis abused and tortured the local people for 3 whole years. Near the end of the war, with Germany's upcoming defeat, the soldiers looted all the town's valuables. However, the citizens staged an uprising and ambushed the Nazis, killing many of them, while the survivors, including the general Hitler, were chased into the mountains. Because none of them returned, the townspeople had assumed that all of them had frozen to death because of the harsh, cold conditions. But in reality, no one knows what happened to them. In the present, the hiker finishes telling his story with a serious face, but the teenagers simply laugh it off as a fairy tale. Annoyed, he leaves the cabin and sets up camp somewhere in the mountains. The hiker then proceeds to have some canned food when he is suddenly disturbed by a strange noise outside. It appears as if the beasts from the start of the movie are back. The hiker grabs his rifle and slowly walks outside his tent to investigate, but in the blink of an eye, a person flashes past him, slitting the hiker's throat. He hurries back inside the tent, but doesn't last long, as the killer follows him inside and violently finishes him off. Meanwhile, Vegard is woken to a ghastly figure placing something beneath the floorboards of the cabin. Believing it to be Sarah, he calls out to her, but she ignores him and leaves the cabin. Scared, Vegard follows her outside and shockingly finds her covered in blood. This sends shivers down his spine, but the very next second, he suddenly wakes up, revealing that it was just a nightmare. The next morning, Vegard decides to set out on a snowmobile to look for his girlfriend Sarah. He bids farewell to the group and instructs the alpha guy, Martin, to return down the mountain and call for help if he doesn't return the next day. After this, Vegard scours the snowy hills until he spots a tent in the distance and heads towards it to investigate. But when he reaches the place, he is taken aback after finding the hiker inside, dead, with his belly cut and his intestines exposed. Vegard also finds a track of bloody footprints, which he starts following, hoping to find Sarah. Unfortunately, just as he reaches a bit further, he falls into a pit and gets knocked out cold. Later that evening, the group back at the cabin have drinks and blast some tunes. Meanwhile, as the fat guy, Erlend, looks for some beer beneath the floorboards, he comes across an old mysterious wooden box. Upon opening it, he shockingly finds loads of valuables and golden coins from World War II. Everyone is stunned by the discovery, and they decide to split the treasure once Vegard and Sarah return to the cabin. In the next scene, as the group continues partying throughout the night, Erlend heads out to take a dump. Along the way, a golden coin falls out of his pocket and onto the snow. His girlfriend Chris also accompanies him in inside the toilet, and the two end up having coitus. Ah, Scheisseficken, a popular German pastime. Meanwhile, a creepy-looking zombie shows up outside and picks up the gold coin. This is the same creature that has been murdering the nearby hikers. Shortly after, Erland returns back inside the cabin while Chris is still inside the toilet taking a dump. All of a sudden, she spots the zombie's face peeking through a hole and becomes terrified. Chris tries to escape with all her might, but the floor beneath her suddenly collapses and she is covered in defecation. Chris quickly gets up and limps her way to the cabin while screaming for help. However, the others can't hear her because of the loud music inside. After some agonizing minutes, a girl with dreadlocks, Hannah, finally hears the screams and turns off the music before going outside to check on her. But right before Chris can be located, she is swiftly captured by the zombie and taken away. Meanwhile, the boys also become wary that something is lurking in the dark, so they grab a shotgun and go outside to investigate. To their horror, they find Sarah's rucksack buried in the snow. The dead snow. On the other hand, Hannah finally sees Chris outside the cabin window, but not in the way she had expected. The poor girl's head has been decapitated, and soon she is split into two. Oh mein Gott. When Liv notices this, she slowly goes to inspect the window when suddenly a zombie breaks through the glass and violently pulls her hair. She is about to meet the same fate as her friend, but Hannah arrives in the nick of time and cuts off Liv's hair, hence saving her. Now the group finally realizes that they are being hunted by lifeless monsters, so they start to panic. After regrouping themselves, they barricade all the entrances, only to learn that hundreds of these creatures have spawned outside their cabin. One of them pokes his hand through the window and tries opening the door, but Hannah swiftly cuts it off. Seeing this, Erland the nerd finally realizes that the attackers are zombies. He urges his friends to avoid getting bit at all costs, but ironically, he is the first one to do just that. As Erland's body freezes by the window, some zombies break through the glass and drag him out. They then torment him mercilessly before finally finishing him off. The group is left in terror after seeing their friend killed in such fashion. So, to avoid meeting the same fate, they try their best to fend off the zombies. Fortunately, using their sheer willpower and some luck, the remaining four manage to survive the night. The next morning, they decide that Hannah and Liv should return back down the mountain to get help, while Martin and another guy, Roy, stay behind to distract the zombies. Elsewhere, Vegard eventually gains consciousness and is able to make it to the surface. He then makes a makeshift torch and returns back into the cave to explore it. As he ventures deep into the creepy cavern, a Nazi flag reveals that the hiker's story was true and that the zombies are in fact the missing Nazis. To his horror, he also finds Sarah's severed head alongside several war helmets and World War II firearms. Out of nowhere, a zombie appears from behind and Vegard is thrown out of the cave. However, he manages to defeat the zombie by bashing his head in with his own helmet. Vegard then drops to the snow and tries to catch his breath, but right then another zombie rises up from beneath the snow and proceeds to attack him. Vegard surprisingly defeats this one as well, but the first zombie, which he pummeled into the ground, wakes up and rushes towards him again. The battle leaves both of them hanging off the edge of a cliff, but luckily, Vegard once again comes out victorious. After killing the zombie, he manages to grab onto his intestines and uses them as a rope to climb up. In the process, he is bitten in the neck, but Vegard's adrenaline doesn't let him think much about that. Meanwhile, Hannah and Liv are seen running for their lives, with hundreds of zombies approaching them quickly. So, with no options left, they separate and run in opposite directions. Liv is eventually caught by one of the zombies, and it knocks her unconscious. Later, she slowly awakens, only to find the zombie feasting on her guts. So, as a last-ditch effort to kill the zombies, Liv quickly pulls the pin on one of the M24 stick grenades and finishes off every being in the area, including herself. However, the resulting explosion attracts the attention of the zombie leader. "It's a me, Hitler!" And so, he sends his troops near the scene. On the other hand, Hannah hides up in a tree free while two of the dead scour the surface in search of her. It appears as if she is going to remain undetected. But right then, a cheeky crow spots Hannah and begins making a lot of noise. This exposes her location, and as a result, one of the zombies starts to climb the tree. Fortunately, Hannah uses her quick thinking and manages to flee the scene. She then leads the zombie to a cliff's edge and breaks the ice, causing both of them to fall down onto the thick snow. None of them are seriously injured, but Hannah is the first one to get up. Using this advantage, she bravely kills the zombie before heading back to search for her friends. Back in the cabin, Roy and Martin try their best to secure the doors, but instead set the whole thing on fire. After a Molotov fails to hit a zombie, they try to call for help, but the cops immediately hang up, as they don't believe their crazy story. As a last resort, the two exit the burning cabin and enter a small storeroom shack. In the meantime, Vegard makes it back to his snowmobile and uses a fishing hook to stitch his wounds. He then mounts a machine gun on the vehicle before heading to rescue his friends. On the other hand, Roy and Martin also manage to find all sorts of tools and equipment. Realizing that it is do or die, they decide to gear up and face the dead head on. The two of them arm themselves and begin to tear up the zombies, one after another. Vegard also arrives just in time on his snowmobile and opens fire on the zombie troops, laying waste to all of them. However, the dead rise up again for a second wave and catch Vegard off guard. This time, our brave protagonist is of no match, and he quickly shredded to pieces. That was terrible. This time, our brave protagonist is of no match, as he is quickly shredded to pieces. When Martin witnesses this, he becomes infuriated and goes to town on the zombies. In the midst of the chaos, Hannah arrives, but Martin mistakes her for a zombie and slashes her throat, killing her instantly. Martin, you dumbass! Devastated by what he has done, Martin continues to let out his anger by murdering all the zombies one by one. But in the process, he also gets bitten on the arm. This leaves him with a tough decision to make. Either it's him turning into a zombie or his arm getting cut off. Not wanting to become a Nazi, he grabs a chainsaw and amputates his own arm. However, his efforts are thrown down the drain as he is soon bitten in the balls. Following this, the zombie captain Hitler finally shows up and confronts the boys. Just as they prepare to take him down, Hitler gives out a big roar, unleashing an army of zombies from beneath the snow. They quickly finish off Roy, and Hitler retrieves a golden watch from his pocket. When Martin witnesses this, he realizes that the zombies are actually in search of their lost treasure, which Erland had found back in the cabin. So, in an attempt to save himself, Martin rushes back to the burnt-down cabin. He frantically locates the wooden box and then hands it over to Hitler! Luckily, the plan works, and the zombies leave him alone. A relieved Martin then peacefully makes his way down the mountain and enters a car. However, just as he is about to take off, he finds a gold coin on the car floor. It turns out he had secretly pocketed it back in the cabin. The movie ends as Hitler and his group appear outside the car, ready to murder Martin for their Jew gold. Das ist richtig. Hitler! Ja, it's me. It's me. Fucking Hitler! Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.